Coming to you live from the shadow of the big house, it's IT4U. Tips and tricks on ITS tools, products, services, and more with your host, Jean Mackey. Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to IT4U. And these are interactive live webinars brought to you by Information and Technology Services. So if you're having any audio or video problems during the live webinar, just let us know in the chat pod. If it's not on our end, we'll probably have some tips for you. If you're watching the YouTube caption version of this, look in the description and you'll see a link to a Google Doc with some resources. If you need an accommodation to participate in a live session, just give us a little bit of heads up and we can make that happen. What's coming up? Intro to Jamboard by Google. It's an interactive whiteboard. We're going to actually do it live. That's coming up. And today we have Evan Blumenstein from ITS about OARS, the Online Access Request System, getting access to administrative data with OARS. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Evan.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to OARS. We're going to talk a little bit today about how you get access to OARS with administrative data, how you access it, and how you essentially just navigate some basic features of OARS. My name is Evan Blumenstein. I'm a business systems analyst with Identity and Access Management, and I'm the one that pretty much handles the day-to-day operations of OARS, so I can give you some great information here, hopefully. So the first question is, what is OARS and what does OARS do? OARS is our online access request system, and it's an application that we use to request access to systems, databases for faculty, staff, and students. Now, the primary users of OARS tend to be our unit liaisons and access and accounts, but almost anybody who has an administrative role or a hiring role or works with as a supervisory role would have a reason to use OARS. And OARS, again, is designed to track the process for getting permissions to get roles and to get access. So people always want to know, so this is geared towards unit liaisons, but what do unit liaisons do? Well, unit liaisons are a very critical part of our organization. They're appointed by their deans or directors, and they represent the school or college or business unit for any kind of projects and ongoing support that have any kind of administrative impact. So they primarily handle communications and any kind of access and system administration that needs to go on. They're usually going to be your main contact if you have any questions about OARS. And there's a link here to a page, one of our ITS pages, that tells you a little bit more about what the ULs do and who they are.
And we'll share these slides at the end, right?
Yes, absolutely. These slides will be available. So accessing OARS is fairly simple. You go to access.its.umich.edu. It does require a unique name, a login, and two-factor. And if you are outside the U of M firewall, or if you're on a wireless connection, you'll need to be using a VPN to access it as well. So essentially, anyone who has a unique name can access OARS. So let's talk about what OARS is, how it works. And I'm going to go right into the OARS system and show everyone how this works. And for our demo purposes today, I'm going to actually be using our QA system so that we're not submitting live and real access requests. So this is OARS, and you can see that at the first of all, you can tell that we're in a test environment because it says test all over. And this is what a typical user would see. At the top, we have the menu bar. The M will take you back to the home page. You can see that I'm logged in as me. Under me, I have some options I can log out. There's some help and support available. And there is search. And this search bar up here is going to be the same search bar that appears in the center here. And we'll talk about how to use that in just a minute. There's also a couple other things going on the front page here. You can see this is where we would submit a request. And if we wanted to see what was in progress for ourselves, we'd use this button. We'll come back to that later. But we have the ability to put in system requests. Most users won't need to worry about that. And anytime there's any news or updates, we post this here for any critical items going on with OARS. So who can initialize a request? So in terms of submitting a request, anybody who has access to OARS can submit a request. Of course, that does not mean it will be approved. There's a permission process that has to go through. So anyone can ask. However, people who give permissions to the roles have the ability to either say yes or no. And we'll talk about how that works. Anybody can do a search in OARS and see themselves. Anybody can see classes, courses, roles. They can see what's going on for themselves. So you have the ability to see anything you need about yourself and submit requests for yourself. And that's about what most users would have. So let's talk about how we would create a request. So in order to create a request for a role, we simply click on request.
Could you say what a role is?
Role. So a role is a specific function or ability or access within a system, something like PeopleSoft or Dart or imaging. Those systems are quite large, and within those systems, people have access to read, to write, to update, to access certain areas, and these roles define that access and those privileges.
Cool.
Something to note that there are over 1,500 roles in OARS, so it does require you to have a little bit of knowledge when you're doing this. And again, if you have any questions, work with your ULs, work with your department leads. They can help you, guide you through. So the first thing you'll notice when we open up an access request is it starts to pre-populate the information. And OARS has some links to some other systems, specifically it links to mCommunity. So when you start to fill out a request, it will pre-populate your own name here. Notice that it also has the requester information, and it shows me. The requester information cannot be changed because it wants to know that I've requested this access request for somebody, but all the information in the user request can be changed. So you see that immediately it defaults to me, and you can see that here's a link for me. And if I click on the link, it will tell me some information about me, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It also lists my department, my employee type, my UMID. Again, all this information comes from mCommunity. So if you do not have an active unique name in mCommunity, this information will not populate. So if you have a case like that, especially for new hires, go ahead and talk to your unit liaison. They'll help you to do this. If I wanted to submit a request for someone else, I can put their unique name in here. And again, it will start to look this person up. This tells me this is for Allison Levitt. She was a regular employee. You see she's in a little bit different department, IT Service Center. For now, let's go back and create one for myself. So here we are. We have the unique name. Notice I also have a department here. By clicking on my department, I can get information about my department. This is the department I'm in. This is what the department description is, where I am. And you can see it lists all of my unit liaisons, and we'll talk about that, how valuable that search is. But if you have any questions, we'll often ask users, say, I know I need to work with my unit liaison, but I don't know who that is. Go ahead and click on your information inside OARS, and your specific unit liaisons will pop up. So again, OARS is built to kind of help guide you through some of these issues. Questions on how that works?
Put them right in the chat pod there.
Keep going. If we get any questions, we'll come back to them. So at the top, access request, I have user information, requester information. Now I have some fields down here to add and remove roles. OARS can be used to request roles, also can be used to request removal of roles. If a person moves from one position to another, no longer fills a role, we want to remove their access to a system if it's no longer needed. And that's the privilege of least access in ITS. So let's actually create to add some roles here. Now, like I mentioned, there are over 1,500 roles in OARS, and you can see that they're listed, categorized. And if you know where a role is, that is a good way to select the roles. But the easiest way to do so is actually to use our type ahead feature. Question?
Otto says, does requesting an OARS role for yourself, do you violate any internal controls policies?
No, you don't, because these roles, you don't get to request and approve. So roles are set up to have specific permissions baked into them. So if I have a role that goes to a unit liaison, no matter who requests it, the request for that role and the permission will go to the unit liaison, and they will ultimately have to say yes or no. And there's a lot of cases where roles are not granted because someone should have the role. That's why we use the process. All right, I'm going to start using the type ahead function. It just seems to be the easiest way to do this. We recommend this is the best practice. It does, of course, require you have a little bit of knowledge about the roles you want. I know some roles that we're going to use for this demo. PY Central Office Staff. This is an HCM role, so I'm going to select this. And what I've essentially said is that I want to add this role that is under payroll. I place a green select check mark in the box. And at the summary, you can see that this role has been added as addition. So there's one role I can add. Now you can add multiple roles per request. Okay, a request needs to have at least one, but can have more roles. And we recommend the best way to do this is to add multiple roles in a request, and then the request gets processed, and as the roles become added, you get notified. Whoops, apologize for that. I have a UV key in it sometimes. Loves to go off on me. Let's try another role here, financial legacy. This is a business objects. Now notice for this role that we have two roles that look almost exactly the same. One is a business object role and one is an Oracle role. So again, this is an example of why you want to work with your unit liaisons, maybe your ITS personnel, to make sure you're selecting the right role. And then we're going to use another, yes. And I have some roles that I have built in. Okay, so now we have three roles. So I've selected these roles manually, and I've said that I want to add these roles. I want to start the permission process. What we can see here is that these are the roles that I selected. These are the next immediate approvers for the roles. Question.
If you are the UL for multiple departments, like in the vice provost office, how do you make sure you have correct roles for all those different departments?
So I'm not sure if you mean as the UL or
as the UL.
That's something we can look at what your approval role should be. If you have any questions about that, submit a service link ticket and it will come to me and I'll give you a call and I'll work directly with you. Anytime we get, OARS is a very customer engaged process. So there's a lot of questions and it takes sometimes take a little bit of discovery to understand what you need to do. So I'll be happy to work with you on that issue. Okay, so now back to the request. I have these three roles that I've asked for. I have the ability to put comments in the role if I want. Let's suppose at some time I said, I think this is what I need. I'm not sure. There may be additional roles. I know I need these. I'd like to save this and come back. There's a process to do that. Question.
Otto says, the question that is most often asked is, what OARS role do I need to create POs or recs, requisitions, etc.? Where do I go to look up what roles give this access?
That's a good question. There is not a direct role mapping per se that says this role gives access to this. It is very much dependent upon the departments and the systems. As the kind of administrator of OARS, I don't determine what the roles do. That's determined by the departments or the systems themselves. So if you have a question about a DART role, we would talk to a DART unit liaison and have them. And again, if it's not in your department, some of the other department ULs might understand that. Again, I can work with you to determine that. It really varies.
Evan, is it still true you can find somebody who has the access you want and copy their access?
Which is I was just about to do that exact thing.
All right.
So as I was saying, we have a request here. I know that this person is starting with 3 roles that they need, but I also know that this person has just been hired to replace someone who's retiring. We've given them a wonderful retirement party. They're going away, but I need to make sure that I have the same access as them. So one of the things I can use is the function called copy roles, which is here. So all I really have to do is put in someone's unique name and click lookup, and then OARS will pull back what it knows in OARS about this person. So according to OARS, these are all the roles that OARS has ever worked with for this person. And from here, I can simply say add roles. Now you can see that some of the roles have been added and some have not. The roles in green have been added. The roles in red, either the user already has these roles or they're no longer used. So this is the easiest way to mirror someone's access. And we strongly recommend you use this function. It is a great function. It's kind of a one-stop shopping. Just whatever this person had, give it to this person. Now you can see that I've added all these roles. The first 3 were added manually. The last 4 were added through the copy roles function. I have the option, I can hit save, and what we'll do is we'll keep this in suspense and I can come back and submit. But for now, we know this is what we want. I can put any kind of comments if I need. but we are going to submit this for authorization. Once I submit, you can see that first thing that comes up, as I said, my request is not yet submitted. Some of our roles have something we call secondary security. This is a feature people want to know about. Some of our roles cover quite a large area in our systems. A lot of our PeopleSoft roles may have access that needs to be further limited. And what we do is we use something called secondary security to further delimitate or further narrow down what these roles have. So for roles that have secondary security, you're required to pick that before you can submit it. For this role, you can see that these are the secondary security components of that role. And I'm just going to pick one to add, and it'll tell me what's going on, and I will save and submit. Now I can see that I have submitted a request successfully. This is my access number, my OARS request number. You can use this to reference anything, to look up everything. And you can see it's been requested, and you can see the state of my requests. All of these are pending my approval from my unit liaison. 85% of the roles in OARS go through unit liaison approval. Questions on how that works? The basic approval process for OARS is you create an approval and submit it. You complete all of the permissions and training if there are anything available or anything required. It goes to access and accounts for processing, and then the request is closed out. All right, so now we have a request, and we can see that this request, and I'm just going to copy this down, this is 587827. So I can come back to that in a little bit, but I want to show you how to do some searches on OARS. One of the big things people often ask is, how do I find what's going on for myself? How do I find information in OARS? Now that we've had a request, we can talk about how to search around. So the easiest way to get back to home in OARS is to click the M up at the top. It will take you back to the home page. And now from here, we're back to the search and in progress. So let's talk about searches first. We have a question.
Jeannie says, when I look up myself and my roles, there wasn't the green shading and the red shading. What does that mean?
It only comes when you add, green shading only comes when you select add. It won't, the green shading will not come up if you just say show the roles. It's only when you use the add function, the green and the red show you which roles have been added and which haven't. Okay. Good question. All right, so let's take a look. Let's do some searching in here. I showed you that the first, we just had a request submitted for me, and it was request 587827. Oops. So if I type that in, I type a request in, the first thing it will do is it will take me right back to that request from a view. And you can see this is the request we just submitted, and you can see that it has a lot of links and a lot of hyperlinks going on and a lot of icons. So this is the first role I submitted, and if we hover over here, you can see it's pending UL approval. This one's pending UL approval. All these are pending UL approval at the moment. It has been requested. And if I have a question about what any of these are, I can click on this link, and it will show me this is what I've requested. This is the role ID, the role name. It also has some links to required training, recommended and required. And if I click on the link here, it'll take me to the training. So OARS has kind of a circular reference built in that it will show you the links of everything that is connected to a role. One of the other things we can search for is other than requests. Let me show you another example of one that's in multiple phases, 587824. So here's an example of a request that was submitted, a test one I did. You can see we've got 4 different roles. All of these roles are in different states. So for this role, this is pending ITS authorization. This role here is processing, and it's waiting for access and accounts to actually give me the role. This role here is pending UL approval, and this role here is pending department approval. The roles go through different approval processes depending on how the roles are set up. So you can see here that this is a good way for the user to check the status of their request. So I can check for an individual request. I can search for users. This is probably one of the most useful searches that you can use OARS for to show you information about yourself. So I'll type my name in here, and again, sometimes QA takes a moment. Waiting. Must be affected by the cold. Oh, here we go. So under search for me, you can see this is what's going on. There are no courses that have my name in them, but I've had 369 different access requests. I have a set of user securities. So these are all of the access requests. You can see that there's 74 pages worth of access requests that I have in historical view in OARS. And you can see the process. You can take a look at all of these requests. So we have a historical auditing, essentially, of every request that's ever been put in for me. So this is a good way to look back and say, I put in a request a couple months ago, what happened with it? I want information about it. I want to know what the roles were. You have the ability to go back and search through your pages and look at all your requests. The most useful information people find, though, is this user security here at the bottom. And by clicking on my name, it will show me pretty much all the information that OARS knows about me. The assigned roles, but more importantly, unit liaisons. That's a big question we have. People always want to know, who are my unit liaisons? Who do I talk to? Simply by putting your name into OARS and then clicking on user security, it will show you all the unit liaisons that are assigned to you or that you work with. And you can see that there is a primary designated by the star and a secondary that doesn't have the star. Now, when requests go out, they go out to the primary and the secondary UL, but this is who is primarily responsible and should probably approving most of these. Down below, you can see the roles I have and the roles that I have processing. So you can see for this role, CCC, this batch supported staff, it is processing, and you can see the blue arrow is fairly well along, so we can tell that this has moved along its path fairly well. This one is pending UL approval, and then some other roles, all these other roles that are in various states of approval process. I have one M-card role, and I have one M-community role. And then below, again, we have the user information. And these are the CS, HCM, and data warehouse roles that I have. And this will list out. Now, it doesn't list any of the other roles at the moment. This is currently the limit of what OARS will show you. Questions on user access. We tend to get a lot of questions about how I get this information and what it's good for. Okay. Let's go back and some other things you can search for. If someone's told you that you need to assign a role and you're not sure what the role is, you can look up roles directly in OARS as well. And the way we do that is simply to type in the name of the role. Now, the great thing about OARS is that it is not case sensitive. However, it does not use wildcards either. Question?
When I approve an OARS role, does this also update the roles in M reports, compliance, access, validation? Are the roles the same?
So for the majority of the time, yes, OARS does sync with the access validation data warehouse, but not for all roles. The majority of roles will sync, about 85%. You will be able to see that. However, we have a lot of custom roles and very specific roles that do not go through the access validation data warehouse. When you're in doubt, give us a shout and we'll help you figure that out. Is that right? Okay, so I did a search for a role called FA Student Service Center User. And this is, tell you what this role is here. It's role for Student Service Center representatives. Very common role we might get for students who are being hired. Tells you what the role is. If you click on the role a little bit more detailed, it'll tell you what source system it comes from, if there's any required or recommended training, and it isn't, who gets the role. So we can search for any kind of role that exists in OARS. We can also search for courses in OARS. And again, what's great about OARS is it is not case sensitive. So I want to search for something called CUS 201. Well, it turns out there is actually a course called CUS201. And clicking on this, it will tell you all information about the course, the ID, the name, the description, if it has any recommended roles, and it's required for. So you can see that this course, CUS 201, is required for senior evaluation order users. So if you need to take this role, you will be required to take this training.
These are all classes that are in MyLink.
Yes. So OARS has an integration with MyLink. It actually goes back and forth. Whenever you create an OARS request, if that role has a piece of required training, a message is sent to MyLink from OARS, and the user will receive a notice saying that you are required to take these courses, and MyLink has placed these in your to-do list. Please go ahead and take these courses. And once you take those courses, if they're required, that information comes back to OARS, and that is actually part of the approval process. So there are permissions and there are training for roles, and it varies by role. And if you're required to take training, once that training is completed, MyLink sends a message back to OARS, and then the OARS request goes to the next step. Question? Great. All right, let's take a look at the in progress bar. This is another way to look at information. And for me, and again, it's going to take a moment to pull things up. Just another way to look at all the information that OARS knows about me at this moment. You can see that there are 9 requests in progress. There are 9 that I have submitted because I do some submitting as a tester. There are 2 pending ITS authorization. There are 2 processing. There are 2 processing that are unassigned. That's something we would want to look at. If you come across that, it usually means that there's an error. Please give us a shout. We will fix those. So this is a real good way for users to make sure that their requests are processed correctly. If you have any questions, go into the in progress, look here at the processing unassigned. There should never be any of those. If they are, give us a shout. Question?
How do you assess who should receive a specific type of role?
So your unit liaisons should know that, as well as some of your department leads, as well as access and accounts. If you have any questions, you want to first talk to your unit liaisons. They should have a list of what roles go with what system, and ultimately access and accounts is going to be the one that provides the roles for you. So working with your unit liaisons and access and accounts, we can determine what you need.
I guess first you have to figure out what the heck do you need to be able to do.
Right, right. Like I said, OARS has about 1,500 roles, so there's quite good granularity and permissions, and there's a lot of commonality too. Access and accounts does this all the time. They process multiple requests per day. If you have any questions, give a shout. We'll help you with it. Okay, so that's all of the searches. Looking at my notes here, we've talked about the roles, we've talked about copying roles. I want to talk a little bit about processing requests. After you submit a request, processing can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 days. It really depends on the role itself. Different roles have different approvals and they go through different steps. So they may process at different times. Like I showed you before, you saw one that was, for me, that was at one point pending unit liaison approval, one pending department approval, one in processing. That's not uncommon. OARS does send notifications when things are moving along, when things get provisioned, you do get notices. Keep in mind that roles can be denied. You can put a request for a role, and one of the states is denied. We have this happen all the time. Users think they need 15 roles. It turns out they only need 10. 5 will get denied. That is a valid state. Ultimately, the people who manage the roles manage the permissions, and if you don't get a role, you're not supposed to have the role, so don't worry too much about that. You can always work with the unit liaisons to get the right access you have. This is a very back and forth process for people.
Evan, am I right that the goal is you should have the access you need to do your job, but no more? Exactly.
So one of the things we like to use OARS for is deprovisioning roles. Like I said, if you move to a new department, you no longer need access into a system. your department lead or unit liaison should submit a request to remove those roles, and then you'll get an email saying that these roles have been removed for you.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So sometimes I've had experiences with people who had business objects access and a bunch of reports, and then they got a new job and they lost their access and they lost their reports. How do you make sure that doesn't happen? You had access to a certain role and you're still going to need some of it.
I would use the notes field copiously in OARS requests. When in doubt, write things out. Again, the perfect timing, because as you can see, the last stage is that this goes to access and accounts. And one of the things to remember is that OARS actually doesn't provision any roles. What it does is it tracks the permissions and approvals. And the very last step is access and accounts goes into those systems and says, give this person this access. So there's always a way to put down notes, to ask questions. We will contact you. We will make sure you get the right access. If you don't have the right access, we'll work with you to get the right access. The goal is to make sure people can access the systems they need. Okay, not to simply deny or approve roles. After roles are complete, after a process is complete, all roles within a request have to be either approved or denied before the entire request is complete. So you have roles within a request, and then you have the overall request. And a single request can have multiple roles, some approved, some rejected, and that's okay. We talked about searching OARS. About your progress. So the general approval process for OARS, like I said, submit a request where you can add, modify roles, multiple roles. We use this for the Ann Arbor campus, Dearborn, and Flint. Question?
Who should remove the role when no longer required when an employee moves to a new department? The new department or the old department?
So the old department should initiate that because they are by business process, they should be deprovisioning. However, we know that doesn't always happen. So again, it's a matter of communication. If you have any question, reach out to the new unit. Unit liaisons or department leads should be working with each other, especially when we have transfers. And again, it's a very interactive customer-based process. So it may take a couple rounds to get it right, not a problem. So you create a request, and then it goes through approvals and trainings. And again, that differs by role. Some roles don't have any training. Some roles have multiple courses. Some roles have multiple approvals. But about 85% of all of our roles go through UL approval. Once the approvals and trainings are done, access and accounts gets the request. They provision the roles directly into the systems. Sometimes there are additional role information that they will use to assign additional roles. And again, that's part of their processes. You shouldn't have to worry about it. And then once everything is completed, you'll get an email request saying that yours request has been completed. And again, rejected is a completion status. All roles follow the same general path, but don't have the same components. So all roles start with secondary security, department, UL, custom, ITS, training, and then processing. Not all roles will have all these components, but they will always go in the same order if they do. Any or all of these can be part of a request. When OARS requests are made, users do get emails. One of the great things about this is that it's a very email-heavy system, is that you get notifications pretty much when anything happens. So when a new OARS request has been created for you, you will get an email saying a new OARS request has been created. You can see this was from our test environment. And the link, this is just a snapshot of the screen, but these links will be active and you will be able to click on them and go directly in and see what your OARS request is. When there's a request waiting for approval for a UL or a department or any kind of approver, that person will get an email, and they will get a once daily email that will collect all of the approvals that are pending and send them a daily reminder. So this person has one request that they need, and again, this is our test environment, but they have one online access request that they need to go in and approve. If you are waiting for training, if approvals happen and the next step is training, you will get a notice from OARS saying that one of your requests is pending training. Essentially, go into my link, please take the class. Once it's completed, it will let OARS know. Notice that you have 14 days to complete your courses. We also look at access and compliance, the yearly attestation that everybody must certify to. If you have not completed access and compliance, that can hold up your OARS request. That's pretty much across ITS. And then again, once your OARS request has been completed, you will get an email stating that the item has been completed, what the items were, whether it was added, removed, and the status. Questions?
Let's see. Is the chain of approval always department, then UL, then IT?
Yes, it is. If they exist, not all roles have department approvers. So if there's no department approver, it won't stop at department. It will go right to the next step. Back to the first slides.
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
All right. Thank you, Evan. And thank you. If you want to give us any feedback, just go ahead and put it right in the chat pod there. We download the recording. We'll put it up on YouTube, and we'll send it out to everybody who registered. And I think that's about it. We'll keep the room open for a few more minutes if you want to give us any more feedback. And thanks so much.